Hi there. So if you've been watching the Netherlands elections, you might have noticed that Geert Wilders hasn't done quite as well as initially expected. At the peak of polling, his party, the PVV, were expected to take about 26 seats, but in reality they have only taken 20. This is a gain for his party, but the polls seem to indicate that he was doing much better beforehand. And Europhiles have been calling this a massive victory for, the EU, and that this seems to signify some sort of end of Euroscepticism going across Europe at the minute. But I disagree with that. I don't think that Geert Wilders was representative of the real Eurosceptic movement. Of course, he was talking about mass immigration and he had a bit of an anti-Islam rhetoric going, but Geert Wilders was never really going to do anything in government. You have to understand that the Dutch have a different system than America and France. They don't. They have the same system actually that I have in my country, Northern Ireland, and that's proportional representation. One of the big flaws with proportional representation, I find, is that you end up with what's called strategic voting. And strategic voting is where you won't vote for the candidate you want because the candidate you want is likely to get elected anyhow. And this can cause all sorts of problems. Let me give you a brief example here. Say, for example, there are 100 seats going in government, and each candidate needs to earn 50 votes to get one of those seats in government. Now, that's just me pulling numbers out of my ass, so don't quote me on that or anything. But say, for example, any given candidate needs, say, 50 votes to get into government. So you are supporting a very popular candidate, say, for example, like Geert Wilders, and you know he's going to get in. So you say to yourself, well, if I vote for him and I'm number 51, then my vote went for nothing, because he's already in. Once he gets 50 votes, that's him in. And even if say 60 people vote for him, those last 10 votes, they mean absolutely nothing. So what happens is you'll say to yourself, okay, he's going to get in anyhow. Why don't I vote for someone else that I like? And the reason that you would do that is because with proportional representation style of elections, you typically end up with a coalition government. Sometimes it's even mandatory to have a coalition government. And so it's not about how popular Geert Wilders is. It's not like a presidential election. What Geert Wilders needs is numbers, people with similar policies to him. And so what you will do is, if you're in, say, for example, Geert Wilders' constituency, you know that he's going to get elected, right? So you will think to yourself, well, there's no point in me voting for him because I could be number 51 or 52, haven't voted for him, and then my vote doesn't count for anything. What I would be safer doing is voting for someone who has similar policies to him, and then at least number one, my vote will count for something, and number two, that'll help get him numbers in government. The problem with this is that this can lead to some overconfidence. So just say for sake of argument, Geert Wilders didn't get even elected in his own constituency. Let's ignore his party for the minute. Let's just say everyone was expecting Geert Wilders to get elected, and so no one actually voted for him. They voted for people with similar policies to him, but they didn't actually vote for him. He wouldn't have got in, but people like him would have, and this leads to that sort of displacement of votes. It's a system I really don't like. It could be one explanation as to why the PVV didn't do so well, but I think another explanation is likely to do with a manifesto. It's a one-page manifesto, and it's very, very skimpy on content. And I mean, no offence to Geert Wilders, and I agree with his idea of trying to cut down mass immigration, but it's as if he hasn't really thought of anything outside of that. And if you're going to run a party or a government or a country, you really need to have a grasp of the bigger picture, and it really just seems as though Geert Wilders has thought about nothing other than Islam and mass immigration. And this is where other Eurosceptics throughout Europe haven't focused, well, while they have maybe made mass immigration their priority, they have shown that they've thought about other things. They haven't focused solely on that one policy, and that's where Geert Wilders went wrong. And I think this is where his opponent, Mark Rutte, who's part of the current, or was part of the previous government there, was able to steal potential votes from Geert Wilders, and I think this actually done a massive amount of harm to Geert Wilders and his party, where Mark Rutte blocked Turkish politicians from being able to campaign in the Netherlands. This was following a call for a referendum from Turkey's Prime Minister Erdogan, and he kind of played on this anti-Islam rhetoric that Geert Wilders has been saying. When you add that and the broader appeal of Mark Rutte's other policies, I mean, he was part of the previous government. He has a track record, and as I said, he has looked at the larger picture. So if he shows that broader competence, plus the anti-Islam rhetoric of Geert Wilders, he is able to steal some of Geert Wilders' potential voters through that. That's what I think, at least. And you also need to consider, as I was talking about coalition governments there, Geert Wilders' party, even if they had have got a large enough majority to form a coalition, they're on such a bad rapport with other parties. No other viable party wanted to create a coalition government with Geert Wilders. He's been very confrontational with other parties, and there's just not a good stand-in between the PVV and other parties in the Netherlands. And in fact, he was actually offered previously to join a coalition government, and he refused to. He just seems to be anti-government, and it's kind of a weird stance. It just kind of looked like he was never going to make it at all. But even besides that, you need to consider that the Netherlands is in a different position regarding Euroscepticism than other countries. The Netherlands doesn't have the same banking crisis that Italy has. It's not going through the same weekly riots like France. It doesn't have these mass migrant ghettos throughout its cities like Paris does. And even if you look at Spain, you have liberals in Spain looking to form Eurosceptic parties. So the rest of Europe is almost completely different to the Netherlands. They have their own reasons for being Eurosceptical, and Geert Wilders just didn't really play on the Netherlands' reasons other than mass immigration, and it takes much more than mass immigration to form a Eurosceptic party. I personally don't even think that the forefront of Euroscepticism should be mass immigration. To me, what should be coming first and foremost is the talk of national sovereignty, the talk of the lack of democracy within the EU. Those would be closer to my reasons for Euroscepticism rather than mass immigration. And I think if you're going to try and succeed with Euroscepticism in Europe at the minute, that's where you need to be focusing your attention.